Well, the UK Prime Minister Theresa May's inner circle have made a backup plan to solve one of Brexit's biggest conundrums, what to do about the Irish border. They're proposing an extension of EU customs rule for the whole of the UK after it leaves the bloc. That's according to people familiar with the matter. While the idea would be a last resort, it's come up against skepticism from EU officials and still faces obstacles at home as well. So could Theresa May end up going down that path, and if so, would it work? We're joining us now is Shanker, Singham, a Director of International Trade and Competition at the Institute of Economic Affairs, which is a free market think tank that focuses on the Brexit negotiations and other trade policy issues. Also joining us, David Merritt, Bloomberg's European News Director, and Kit Jukes from SocGen stuck around, and we're grateful to him for that. So thank you all for joining us. David, let me kick off with you, because actually, we came in, there's conflicting reports in the UK press about customs union, the customs union. I mean, what do we know the Prime Minister wants?
Well, the Prime Minister wants a compromise that is going to keep not only her cabinet contented, and we've got warring factions within the cabinet, but also the broader party at large, and something that she can get through the whole of Parliament, when Labour have already made it clear that they're going to be voting for their own proposals on a new customs union with the European Union. So she's got a really difficult task ahead, and of course we've had the inner cabinet breaking up without agreement in the last few weeks. This current proposal seems to be a compromise to really defer the problem further. It's not a solution to what the future customs relationship is going to be, but it does defer the ultimate crunch time, because they're saying, well, maybe we could extend the customs arrangements a little bit beyond, or maybe a long way beyond, the end of the transition period, and also use that as a backstop for this big problem about the Irish border. Remember, the European Union's backstop solution was to effectively put a border in the Irish Sea between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK. Theresa May said that was unacceptable to any British Prime Minister. This solution would extend that arrangement to the whole of the UK. Now, it sounds from our reporting last night that this suggestion did get through the inner cabinet, some dissent from the likes of Mr Gove, from Mr Johnson, but it seems they have come to heel. The next problem is going to be selling this to the party at large, the likes of Jacob Rees-Mogg. What sort of fuss are they going to make about this? Is it something that that Mrs May can get through Parliament with her wafer-thin majority, only backed up by those Ulster Unionists?
Okay, so Shanker, would this fly? Right, or is she going to have enough support from the pro-Brexit faction in the Conservatives?
Yeah, so I think there's two negotiations going on here. One is an internal negotiation that she's having with her own party and with her own cabinet, and a negotiation we're sort of having with ourselves. And then there's the actual negotiation with the EU. And
which one's harder?
The actual negotiation with the EU is obviously much more important. And I think one of the things.
Which one's harder?
They are both equally hard, but one has to drive the other. Right now, we're allowing our own negotiations with each other to drive the process, which is a mistake. What we should be doing is aggressively going to the EU and saying, this is our vision of customs and trade facilitation, this is what our ideas look like, with text on the table, as you would in any normal trade negotiation, and allow the EU then to react to that text, including what you do on the Irish border. So that's what we should be doing, and the problem is that as long as we have...
we don't know what we want.
It's not happening. It's not happening because as long as you have both of these options on the table, the new customs partnership and whatever normal thing you might do in terms of a trade negotiation, they are mutually exclusive. So you can't actually go forward. You can't actually get customs ready. HMRC can't get prepared. The private sector can't get prepared, and it's bleeding over into the rest of the negotiations. So in the WTO process, how we take up our seat in the WTO, that is slowing down as well. So the most important issue here is not actually what's going on in the government and the cabinet and the parliament. The most important issue is we need to start the negotiation, because if we don't start the negotiation, then all of this is academic, all of this is a sort of unnecessary exercise.
Right, but for that you need a piece of paper, right, which is double-sided, 10 pages, 300 pages, with what Theresa May can go to the EU with, and we don't really have that yet.
We don't. The government keeps saying they're going to be publishing a white paper which is going to spell out their position, and we're still waiting for that. But you can definitely sense the exasperation on the European side here. They've repeatedly been saying now for months, we don't know what we are negotiating for, or what Britain really wants out of this negotiation. And I think there's a sense that this is perhaps souring all the other elements which the negotiators are trying to work on in order to get a deal. And time is really running out. We have an important European Council summit just happening just a few weeks away now in June. The idea that the British position could be clear ahead of that is becoming a little bit implausible at this point. And then, of course, the whole deal is supposed to be ready to be signed off come October. And, of course, we all know what happens in Europe over the summer months as well. Not a huge amount of progress might be made there. So, really, the clock is ticking, as Mr. Barnier likes to say, but the pressure really should be on now. And, of course, the fear is on both sides that this is going to be true to form of many European negotiations as sort of an 11th hour deal that's going to be keeping up everyone all night. You know, can everyone's blood pressure cope with the stress and the strain of this? And are we going to get a sensible deal under those conditions? That's really the question.
And speaking of the summer holidays, Kit works for a French bank. He'll be at the beach for July and August. What's pounds trading on? I mean, what's priced into pound at the moment?
I think the pound has got a fair amount of negativity priced into it, in the sense that it's priced. We took sterling in trade weighted terms. You know, again, I mean, down to where it was at the peak of the crisis in the global financial crisis, lower than it. 1992, and what we've done now all of this year is bounce around along those incredibly depressed levels. I can sit here and think, great, if you could get it to bounce just high enough for me to sell it, I would. But that's about where you get from this conversation. So I don't think the market hasn't defaulted from that, saying it would react more to good news. You get a deal, you'll get more of a positive reaction because sterling is cheap, but we're not getting a deal. If we would get good news and rate hikes, the pound would react more positively, but we're not getting them. This is sort of permanently anchoring ourselves to having our currency pretty much as cheap as it's been for a generation. And maybe the only thing is it can probably get a little bit weaker if this does all drag on too long and we can't find a deal we can agree that we could possibly negotiate with.
Yeah. But euro sterling's not moving, right? It's kind of like trading sideways. I feel like I ask you every time and it still doesn't do it.
I mean, I wish I had a better story than this. I think ultimately this is going badly enough that if the euro ever finds a reason for anyone to start buying it again, we'll start trading euro sterling somewhere between 90 cents and parity. It's not inconceivable. If we go down the current negotiating path, unable to find a solution acceptable to the Conservative Party and its union with the UDP, then we will eventually see euro sterling trade a lot closer to parity.
Shanker, who does the Prime Minister need to listen to, Philip Hammond or to Boris Johnson?
Well, I think what the Prime Minister has to do and what the UK has to do is actually take the initiative here and actually be proactive and actually to go forward with an agreement, because no agreement you come forward with. Well, it's not a question of listening to one person or one faction or playing off people against each other. It's a question of what is UK policy. What we have to do is go forward, present to the European Union a text, not a white paper, but a text that actually has words on a page that relate to the trade provisions for customs and trade facilitation, and the EU will react. And we're very Cartesian about this. We almost assume that we have to negotiate the end state. There's another party here. The EU has to take part in this process, and I think you mentioned there's a lot of confusion on the part of the EU. We also have to be careful here because we are on opposite sides of the table, and it is very much in the EU's interest to run the clock out. And we are empowering their ability to run the clock out. We are empowering them in the WTO and in other negotiations. We're making it more difficult to negotiate an independent trade policy, more difficult to negotiate with the Americans and with others. And the longer we do that, the worse position we're going to be in. So we need to be proactive and break out of the sort of trap that we're currently in.
Thank you all for joining us today. Shanker, Singham, Director of International Trade and Competition at the Institute of Economic Affairs, David Merritt, our European News Director, and our guest host for the hour, Kit Jukes, Global Fixed Income Strategist at Societe Generale.